Content warning. This narration describes a real death and includes references to injury and disturbing circumstances. Stop now if that would upset you. Downtown Los Angeles. An old hotel with a shadowed reputation, the Cecil. In 2013, a young Canadian traveler named Elisa Lam checked in. A few days later, she disappeared. A short piece of surveillance footage made the case famous, and it left more questions than answers. Elisa Lam was 21. She was traveling alone, carrying the usual mixture of curiosity and uncertainty that comes with backpacking through cities. Friends and family watched her journey in the small, everyday ways people do: messages, posts, the casual plans of a life in motion. When she missed a scheduled checkout, concern grew. The hotel registered her as missing. Management and police began to search for anything that might explain her last hours. The only clear video the public would see came from an elevator. The clip is grainy, a single camera tilted toward the elevator doors. In it, a young woman enters. She hesitates. Her hands move as if she is speaking to someone who isn't in the frame. The doors open. She steps out a little, peers into the hallway, steps back in. The doors close and open again. She moves toward a corner of the elevator, looks up and down, steps back. Times she appears puzzled. At others, she looks frightened. She makes a few odd gestures and then leaves. The sequence lasts just over a minute. It was replayed and slowed and debated around the world. Shortly after the footage circulated, guests began to complain that the tap water tasted or smelled wrong. Maintenance checked the rooftop water tanks. Inside one tank, they found Elisa's body. The tank sat high above the roof. Reaching it required a hatch and a ladder. It was not an obvious place for a hotel guest to enter. The coroner's report concluded the death was accidental drowning. The publicly released autopsy did not show clear signs of assault. That official determination did not close the case in the public mind. It widened the gap between a conclusion on paper and the images people had watched on a screen. So how did she get into that tank? That question is the hinge of most speculation. The elevator footage, already strange to many viewers, seemed to invite explanations. Was someone following her? Was she alone in the elevator with someone unseen? Was she disoriented, frightened, or experiencing a psychiatric episode? These are different possibilities, each with different implications. Elisa's medical history was part of the public record after her death. She had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. There were times when medication adherence had been inconsistent. Some medical experts suggested a psychiatric episode. Confusion, disorientation, brief psychosis could plausibly explain both her behavior in the elevator and how she might have inadvertently entered a rooftop tank. That perspective offers a sober human explanation that fits the autopsy's findings. Accidental drowning without signs of a struggle. But context complicates that account. The rooftop tank is not a place most guests would find. Witnesses and maintenance records provided conflicting impressions about how accessible the tanks were and how often they were inspected. The elevator video itself is ambiguous. A single angle, lacking sound and context, bereft of the moments before and after the recording. In the absence of a complete narrative, speculation rushed in, and the Cecil Hotel's history fed the public appetite for darker stories. The building, long associated in local memory with suicides and violent incidents, had a reputation that made unsettling theories easier to accept. Once the footage went online, the internet did what it does. It amplified every theory, connected unrelated facts, and invented patterns where none might exist. Conspiracy theories multiplied foul play. Cults, government experiments, paranormal causes fueled more by fear and curiosity than by evidence. We should be careful when our minds try to fill gaps in a story. Video can feel like proof, but footage is fragmentary. It captures a moment without the surrounding context that explains motive, intent, or state of mind. The elevator clip showed gestures and a brief sequence of behavior, but it did not show the minutes or hours that led to those gestures. It did not show who else might have been in the hallway earlier, and it did not show the rooftop before the discovery. The temptation to treat a single piece of footage as the whole truth can be cruel and misleading. Beyond the technical questions is a human reality. Eliza was more than a clip. She was a person with relationships, plans, and a life that mattered to people who loved her. When public attention collapses a life into a single viral moment, grief is often displaced by debate. That displacement can feel like erasure. For family and friends, the endless dissection of a loved one's final hours may be a second harm. The official facts, as released, are limited and circumscribed. Drowning was the cause of death. No public autopsy evidence pointed to an assault. The details about access to the tank, about whether a maintenance hatch had been left unsecured, about the precise sequence of who saw what and when, left room for multiple plausible explanations and for continued uncertainty. This case also illustrates something about modern life. Cameras make us both more visible and more unknowable. We trust recorded images because they seem objective. But those images lack inner context, the thoughts, fears, and sensations a person might experience in private. The footage made Elisa's last hours visible in a narrow, decontextualized way, inviting the world to interpret, judge, and invent. What can we take away from this? First, that certainty is often impossible with partial evidence. Second, that medical and situational explanations can coexist with questions without being less credible. Third, that empathy matters. When we confront a puzzling tragedy, restraint and respect for the living are essential. Speculation may satisfy curiosity, but it also risks compounding grief. Elisa Lam's death remains tragic. For some, the case is a puzzle to decode. For others, it is a warning about how quickly a life can be reduced to a headline in a single viral moment. The coroner's formal finding was accidental drowning. The fragments we have, the elevator footage, the rooftop tank, the hotel's history will continue to be examined and debated. But at the center of every theory should be the simple fact that a young woman died and a family lost someone they loved. If you remember one thing from this story, remember the person behind the footage. Cameras can show us moments, but they cannot replace compassion.